It's Friday, June 25th, and you, my friend, are listening to The Drive. I'm back. I know you did not miss me at all. You're like, Prale, what? Where's Catherine? Where's Sean? They're way better than you are. Why? What? Tell me, Catherine and Sean are there, right? We're going to transition away from you, and they're going to appear. Prale, please tell me you're not back. No, it's true, folks. I'm back. I'm back after my whole outbound conference sojourn. Hey, sojourn. How many times a day do you hear that word sojourn? If you don't know, it's a real word, S-O-J-O-U-R-N. It just basically means I went on a journey. And it was awesome. So the first Friday you missed, I was traveling. And, you know, there was a time, ladies and gentlemen, when traveling just meant, yeah, he was traveling or she was traveling and no big deal. But that was then, and this is now. And I'm in one country, Canada, and the show was in another country, the U.S., and I had to take many tests in advance and get many pieces of paperwork officially filed and completed. And it was quite the process. And there was really no one good spot anywhere to go and find all this wonderful information. So you could tell quickly as you went on your venture who was able to track down all the information and who did not look hard enough. And consequently, where were people getting stuck in the process? Fortunately for me, I apparently found all the information, and it was relatively seamless all the way through. And it was remarkable. I will tell you this. I shared a little mashup on my personal Facebook, and I shared it internally at the company. And I took a picture because, you know, every country's different in this whole COVID recovery thing. Some are further ahead than others. Canada was a little further behind relative to the U.S., and that's more of a function of supply and demand. The U.S. had more supply initially. And then once that started, you know, they addressed their population, then supply freed up for other countries like Canada. And so we're a few months behind. And it was interesting because I took a picture what would normally be a very busy airport in Toronto, because I went from Ottawa to Toronto to Chicago to Atlanta. Wonderful times. And it was like desolate. That's another good rich word. Sojourn and desolate. Rich language brought to you by Daryl. And then we went on to Chicago, and it was like, whoo, and there was like people everywhere. And Atlanta was the exact same way. So I shared this internally with the crew here at VanillaSoft, and it was like, oh my gosh, that's Toronto. And the most telling sign, and this will mean something if you know anything about Canadians, was that the Tim Hortons in the airport was closed. That's how seriously we take COVID. That's impressive. So there you go. I did the show. Then I flew back about 10 days or so, 9 days later, I think it was. And again, I had to take a test, you know, and get it all done before I returned. And like I tested immediately upon landing. I've been tested so many times and I'm negative. It's all good, thankfully. And in Canada, when you land from international travel, you immediately have 3 days in a hotel until you get your negative test result back that you took at the airport. And then you go home where you must isolate and quarantine for the balance of 14 days. So that's where I'm at now. I'm at home by myself. And I got to tell you, the room service here at home is not nearly as good as it was in the quarantine hotel. So I'm kind of sad about that. But with that all said, I'm back. And now here's the irony of the whole situation. I'm back. And that means Catherine and Sean are not. Sean is unable. He is, you know, he's Sean Finder. He is the man about town. He's probably presenting somewhere while in the crowds. But Catherine was going to join us, and then she got her second COVID shot, and she bailed because she's a wuss. Catherine's a wuss. You should know this about her. We love her, but she's a wuss. And coming in on cleanup is the one, the only, the talented Mr. Ollie Whitfield. Ollie, my friend, all the way from the fine land of England. Although, can I ask you a question, Ollie?
You may, of course.
Okay, so what's the proper way I never quite understand this because I'm a moron. What do you prefer in that fine land of yours? Do you prefer I refer to you as coming into us from the United Kingdom, or do you prefer that I say coming into us from England? Because I know you're specifically in England. Because I find the whole UK really confusing because it's not a country unto itself. It's an association. I don't know how you describe it, but what's the right way? What do you, as a native of that fine land, and I'm sure many people have always wondered this, what do you prefer I use for my reference?
Well, in the way that you introduce everything that you do, there's a lot of drama and conviction in your voice. I would go with the same theme. So think of how the call-out guy in boxing would talk. You would go, London, England, with that dramatic tone instead of United Kingdom, which could mean Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, a whole bunch of stuff. So I go for the specific near London, in England, and people
like, but you're not London, England, right? You're not. I mean, that's no. Why. And, you know, I do recall where you're from. I'm not going to say it because I know how many fan boys and fangirls you have, and they will stalk you. So I won't do that unless you want to share it because you want a little love and attention, which wouldn't shock me. But so you prefer England, or you just want to do it more for the what do you want to say? In the red trunks with the Union Jack. Everybody put it together for the impressive Ollie Whitfield. Is that what you want?
Everywhere else I go, whenever I get introduced, it will not beat that. So if you want to do that every time, you are most welcome, sir. That was perfect.
I have to say, I impressed myself. Okay, so today we're not talking about the news. Are we, Ollie? What are we talking about?
I don't know, sir. Just kidding. I like doing that to you. I've done it a few times now. So let's just grill you on Outbound. What was it like to actually be away from your house? You went somewhere else. You took traveling. You shook hands. You did stuff with other people in person. How weird was that? Maybe let's just start off with the traveling. I imagine you had a lot of hassle with multiple flights, which for me just now, even my own country, is very confusing. We can go to almost anywhere in Asia, despite some of Asia being closed down to us, but apparently we can go there and come back. And not most of Spain or France, which is obviously the closest country to us, but we can go to the Spanish islands. So we can go to all the party places and have a good time, but we can't go to main Spain and we can't go to France. So it's very confusing and I don't want to think about it. But you had to do multiple flights within a couple of days. So what happened?
It went relatively smoothly, man. It was totally weird. So when I was on the Canadian flights, and this could have been a function of just what was booked. I don't want people to read into this, but this is what I experienced. You know, everybody was, it was, I don't know what the flight it was. It was maybe 747. There was 3 seats on one side, an aisle, and 3 seats on the other side. And, somebody was in the window, somebody was in the aisle. There was nobody in the middle. And it was very civilized. And I mean, when I got on, they gave me an actual care kit, hermetically sealed. And when you open it up, there's like wipes and disinfectants and masks and everything. It was rather impressive. And so you were covered. So if you wanted to wipe down your tray or your entertainment system or what have you, you could, right? You knock yourself out. You got everything you needed there. Masks were mandated in all the flights and in all the airports. So ironically, on the planes and in the airports, it was law. So everybody was wearing their masks. Of course, I love because the vast majority of people were wearing their masks with their nose fully exposed, just covering their mouth. And I just wanted to take them aside and say remedial mask wearing 101. The point is to stop infections you giving or you receiving, which means you need to cover your nose. I know it's annoying, but anyway, that was my commentary, folks. If you do that, well, at least you know where I stand. So then I hit the U.S. when I landed in Chicago, and as I told you already, the gate was crazy. All the aisles had to go from one gate to another gate, another part of the airport. And it was crazy. There's people everywhere. And that's because the U.S. is further ahead. So that's not meant to be delivered with any judgment. But from coming from a country that's a few months behind and then being popped into that, it was like, wow. And all, for the most part, all the retail was open. So that was crazy. And then you get on the plane and it was boom. There's like everybody. The guy in the middle seat was there. And in fact, on my Chicago, where was that? So on the return leg, I went from Atlanta to Chicago, same way back, and I had this very heavy set man very heavy-set man in the middle. I was on the window. So, at least if I was on the aisle, I can kind of lean out into the aisle. But I was trapped by the window with this heavy-set man, and he had both armrests, and he was consuming all the space. And I'm like, I guess if I'm going to get infected, this is where it's going to happen. So it was a tale of two worlds. But to answer your question about peopling, it was awkward, but it was great, right? Because what's cool about the Outbound Conference is it is truly, I use the word tribe. It's not my word, obviously, but it is a legit representation of your tribe. All these people you see online, people I've done webinars with, podcasts with, panels with, people have had private conversations with nonstop on text, on Slack workspaces, just phone calls because they've sought many help from many people, and you finally, for the first time ever, are meeting them in person, and they're as excited to see you as you are to them. And it was like, do I hug? Do I not hug? Do I shake hands? Do I not shake hands? Do we fist bump? Do we elbow tap? And it was all of the above, and you just kind of had to go with it. So I did everything. I hugged. And then I almost felt like, oh, that was probably a bad idea. But damn it, I want to hug these people. I shook hands, washed my hands regularly just to make sure. I did not wear a mask at the conference, but at the conference, everybody kind of respected, for the most part, that they're almost like a 3-foot bubble, for lack of a better, or a 1 meter bubble. And the tables and the seating were all socially distanced, but of course, when people would go with friends, they would pull their chairs closer together. So it was very courteous, very polite, but it was weird. With that all said, though, it was awesome to be with people again, to go to networking, to go to events, to see body language, to see people, looking at you and pointing at you where they're on stage talking, to have special effects. It was everything that we loved about live events. So it totally felt weird, totally felt wrong. I felt like I was in a bacteria petri dish, but in the same breath, it totally felt right. And it was just dynamite. So ask me when my quarantine is done. My quarantine is officially done July 4th, kids. So, and on July 5th, I get my second shot. So if I manage to get to my second shot, then it was all good. So there you have it.
Cool. Well, I had my first one yesterday, and I was thinking, I hope, I don't get a reaction from this, because otherwise it's just going to be Mr. Prale sat here by himself. But, thankfully all went okay, and we'll see. But I would love to know, so when you got there, obviously everyone kind of respected a bit of distancing and that sort of stuff. And I know you went out to dinner once or twice with some of the organizers because you know them very well. But day one, when the public come in and you're kicking it off, and I had a couple WhatsApp messages back and forth with you, so I know where this is going. Couple nerves sank in, right? Couple little butterflies in the stomach. How did that feel? And not because it's a massive arena, but probably just alone the time difference between the last time you did anything like that and now is so great.
Well, Ollie, as you may have picked up, and I know we've talked about this at length, I do so much public speaking. The public speaking aspect doesn't bother me. And so I was really looking forward, in all honesty, to speaking from a live audience again. And from a pure branding point of view, I'm like, look at this stage. We're going to get some killer photos for my own, branding purposes, my demo reels, that kind of stuff. And we did, by the way. Kudos to the crew at Outbound. They hired amazing photographers. I guess that was something they learned from years past. And you could tell the stuff is killer. So, but I had massive anxiety, and it wasn't like it just creeped up on me. I had it probably leading up 2 days in advance. And the reason why was this. And so folks, I want to share a couple stories with you. The reason why wasn't the crowd. I'm okay with that. I was excited about that. I love a stage. The energy you feed off of them, it's fantastic. It was more than anything. It was the fact that I was going to be presenting live and in person in front of all these people whom I respect. Jeb Blunt, Anthony Iannarino, Mark Hunter, Victor Antonio, Amy Franco, Jeff Bajork, Sherry Levitin, Meredith Elliott Powell. The list goes on. Lee Saltz, Stu Heineke, Larry Levine, Daryl Amy. I mean, the list Kenyatta Gordon. I could go on. This is top of mind. And I have such a tight deep respect for them. I value them so much because they're so accomplished, and so much better than I am, that I did not want to screw up in front of them. And then to make matters worse, as you know, my good friend from almost London, England, it was the case that I was the opening keynote. I was it. I was kicking off the show. And then it was going to end on my final thing where I say, ladies and gentlemen, this is Outbound, but much louder. And then all the fireworks and pyrotechnics would go off, and all the speakers would rush the stage. So I really had to get the crowd going. And of course, for Jeb, this is his baby. Anthony, Mark, Victor, this is their baby. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So it was stressful. And then the irony is, the end of the day, I'm hanging around talking to all the speakers that spoke that day. And we're all comparing notes. And I'm like, oh, I had a crappy sleep last night. And it turned out every single one of these people whom I revere and I think are legendary were the exact same way for the exact same reason. So my friend, no matter how much public speaking you do, this is a tight-knit world, and there's people in the end of the day you revere, you respect, you admire, and you just don't want to let them down. And that, my friend, was why I had butterflies.
When we were preparing the deck for you, helping you out with a couple of the ordering, you had most of the points already down, but I can remember looking at my screen and I thought, first conference in a long time, not just for you, but for everybody. This is the very start of the event. People are going to be ready to go. There's going to be a good mood. How do we kick it off? With something funny. So you had a point about your dog is now a frequent background participant of all of your Zoom calls. And I thought that's got to be the first point. So when you said that, was everybody just rolling around, cracking up? Was it, really good vibes, good mood in the building? Or did you have to drum everything up? I bet people were really excited just to be somewhere. Never mind what the event was going to be, right?
I think they were excited. I think they were nervous themselves, not knowing what to expect. And it's tough because everybody was socially distanced. You didn't have that same, that room could have held 5,000 people. Clearly, with everybody socially distanced, there weren't 5,000 people there. And then you have the bright lights. You can only see so much before you're just not seeing the crowd. So when I did it, because that was my opening slide to your point, was I needed, my goal was to get a laugh out of them. So you were spot on to put that there, and that was part of my inspiration. And the biggest thing was I could hear I got a laugh, but then like any good speaker, you want to get them involved early on. So I said, put your hand up. Anybody here got a pet, a cat, a dog, a gerbil, whatever you got that has been in a video? Put your hand up now. And everybody putting their hand up. So you're getting them involved right away, and that was dynamite to see. So that was right away. There's a shared mentality about that, But that was, even though that was my opening slide, that wasn't my opening laugh. Do you recall what my opening laugh was? What I did, what tactic I did? And I've heard many people say, oh, dude, that was bold. I'm not sure I would have done that.
I did not hear this. No, I have not been able to watch the recording yet. So this is new to me. All
right. So my opening shtick was this. When Jeb called me up and said, Daryl, we want you to open the show up. And I was like, wow, because that wasn't in the original plan. We want you to talk about 20 things that you learned in 2020. I'm like, okay, I'll figure that out. And we want you to kick it off, and then this is what you do. And I said, okay. I said, listen, I've got an idea. You may or may not like it. If you don't like it, it's cool. You will not hurt my feelings. So I'm just going to throw it out there because it's all about what did we learn in 2020, which is all during COVID. And they're like, yeah, what's your idea? And I said, I'm thinking of, to get it going, to get a laugh right away, I'm going to go out in my dress shirt and my suit jacket, my spiky hair, and my cool blue glasses, everything everybody has seen online on all my videos. But down below, I'm going to be wearing just shorts and flip-flops. Because, hey, let's admit it. That's what 3/4 of us are wearing on all of our Zoom conferences. What do you think of that? And they said, we love it, which is not what I expected them to say. I did not. I was being a smart ass. They're like, yeah, do it. And I'm like, really? And they said, yeah. So I said, okay. So that's literally what I did. So I went out, and that's how I opened up the show. And right away, the first thing I said is, am I wearing the right attire? Right? It's Zoom time, isn't it? Oh, wait, what's going on? So the rest of the conference, people come up to me and they say, where's your shorts? And got a ton of laughs, but it was just kind of making fun of the fact that we just went through a weird time. And this was the uniform most of us wore. So we made levity of it, and it got the crowd warmed up.
And now you're back home, and I can see the VanillaSoft branded t-shirt, but I doubt very much that you've even bothered with the pants at this point. You're back home. It doesn't matter now. You can do what you like.
I'm wearing VanillaSoft boxers and VanillaSoft garters. I mean, for my socks, doesn't everybody wear that?
I was going to say, can we see? But that's a terrible idea, and we don't want to blind everybody. So we'll leave that one right where it is, in the past, where it belongs. But there was one thing I wanted to ask you. I've done a couple of events, not too many. In Europe, there's never really too many, to be honest with you, especially in our space. And yeah, I think you have done a couple of them, actually. You've been over to the one in the Excel Center, the B2B Expo. But what was it like to be at a booth again? Because, as you said, there was a respectful bubble, you said, but the whole job, and I really remember this personally, an old boss of mine was saying, guys, go and talk to people. This is what we're here for. Drum up foot traffic. Come on, bring people over. Let's have chats with everybody. But it's kind of different in today's environment. So how was that?
It was good. So the booths were actually quite spread out, believe it or not. So it wasn't like back to back to back to back. We were adjacent to the Mark Hunter booth and their crew. So our booth was staffed by the lovely and talented Chad and Lucy. Chad is from our customer success team. Lucy is from our sales development team. And so we had a good combination. We could get really, really technical really fast if we wanted to, or we could talk about the value prop and use cases and all that kind of stuff. And we had a 20-foot backdrop because we were the title sponsor, and we had a monitor with lots of great stuff playing on it, and videos and commercials and demos and all that kind of stuff. And you're right. The format of the show was a little different because there was no scheduled breaks, a coffee break, a snack break. The show ran continuously, and people were given permission right away just to come and go as you please. There'll be, if you have to leave in the middle of somebody's session, it's okay because we think you're going to come back. So we didn't have the same volume. We didn't have the same rushes or cycles. That was weird. But the people who would, wander around, you'd have great conversations, and everybody was respectful, and everybody would, do the classics. So I'm seeing a lot of VanillaSoft, kind of know what you do, but what do you do? That was the common question. So I loved it. The audience at Outbound was really, unlike some shows you're going to find, I've gone to many shows where the audience are absolute neophytes. Let's go with that. I was going to use a more colorful word, neophytes. And they're like, so I don't understand, so how do you help? You're a dialer, right? Is that what you are? And you're like, no, we're sales engagement, multi-channel. What's a channel? That's normally what I would get. This audience, that's why I loved Outbound, extremely different, very educated, very disciplined, very focused on success. Many of these people, this was their own personal investment to go to this show. So the conversations we had is definitely quality over quantity. So we didn't get, 300 people getting a free tchotchke from us and we get a business card and that was that. It was definitely quality, so much less, but the conversations were brilliant. Now, here's the secret. We were between the theater and the bathrooms. So people kind of had to walk by us. That was a very selective placement on our behalf. But as a whole, the conversations were fantastic. They were truly, truly good. And, for those who are curious, we made multiple sales at the show. And we're actively following up with a boatload of demos as we speak. And then, again, that's a sign. Those demos may or may not close, but it's a sign that these people want to learn more. And that's how I look at it as. And that's why I quite like the Outbound event. It's just cool. But it was weird. The whole conversation thing was weird. But, truth be told, I was busy schmoozing and hugging and glad handing and of course, signing autographs. Not. So Lucy and Chad did the lion's share of the work. You should get them on the show. They will tell you wonderful things. In fact, at one point, I'm not making this up, it was late in the show, Lucy and Chad were busy doing handstands, claiming they were yoga poses. And they had a variety. They had show organizers there and other booth people there, and they were all taking turns doing handstands. So it's a little informal, just so you know.
So let's embarrass you a little bit. I heard, could be true, may not be, that we had something on the stand to give out. And I've tried this a couple of times. My biggest conference that I personally have been to, we tried the water bottle tactic. Come over, grab a water bottle, have a chat. And people would just brazenly walk past you, yoink a bottle, have a drink and say thanks as they walk past. And off they went into the sunset. That did not work. But you went for, was it hand sanitizer as a little gift on the
2-ounce
booth?
bottles of hand sanitizer, because we thought, when we ordered these months in advance, as you do, that would be both a considerate giveaway, and if they took it, we weren't, unlike the water bottle or maybe some of the more elaborate gifts. We thought this is actually, people are going to want this.
I would honestly have bet my house that would have been a great gift. I could see the logic. I don't own my house. Definitely would have bet my house, but that just sounds totally logical to me.
So that's what we thought. We thought it would be considerate, and if not, they'll take it for any kind of travels back. And it had the VanillaSoft logo on it. That was about it. There was no real call to action. Already being the title sponsor, we weren't worried about getting visibility or getting names. We were going to get that regardless. And that's what we thought. So that's what we did. Now, where are you going with this, my friend?
I just wondered if it worked. I mean, do you have a metric ton of hand sanitizer in your travel case?
Let's say I went down there with a metric ton, and let's say I returned with 90% of it in a metric ton.
Oh.
So let's just say it wasn't as popular or as in demand as we expected. Now, in fairness, we did, everybody who registered got a little welcome kit, and everybody had a VanillaSoft hand sanitizer in their welcome kit. But no, a remarkable number of people would come up to us and they say, "Oh, is that gin or vodka or tequila?" No, it's hand sanitizer because it's clear, right? It's a clear bottle. They're like, "Oh, well, I don't need that. Why do you got that?" And it just shows you the varied attitudes you have towards, the circumstances. But we came back with a boatload. So if anybody needs hand sanitizer, give me a shout. I'll send some your way. I might even send 2.
And if you promote it on your Instagram, your LinkedIn, and you tag Daryl, maybe he can send you 12 more. I'm not promising.
Yes. Yes, I can definitely be motivated to reward you for your fine behaviors. Think of it as like an accelerator on a compensation plan. I can accelerate my gratitude.
That's a chief revenue officer right there. Okay, so we
Right
didn't really talk about the speakers and the other things going on at the conference aside from what we were actually doing. So let's be unfair. Who was the best speaker? What was the best keynote that you saw? And there's no. Well, I really liked these 5 people. We've got to have 2 words: first name, last name.
I'll give you the best. I'll give you 2 answers, but they're the best for different reasons. That's why. Okay. So Jeb Blunt, best storyteller. In some regards, I really identify with Jeb because I love telling stories. And he can tell a story. He can weave a yarn and he can stretch it out. I saw his presentations, it might have been an hour long, and I'm like, that's a lot of content in an hour. And he spent like probably 40 minutes just telling stories. And I'm like, dude, that's brilliant. You didn't have to prepare as much as I thought you would because you just told great stories. And you were captivated. So I'm not just a student of the content. I'm a student of the delivery and the production because I want to get better myself, clearly. He killed it with his engaging stories. Then in the end, you go, oh, I get your point. Bam, it's so real now because it had context. That was Jeb Blunt. The funniest presenter. Funniest, which means you were like glued because you were entertained, but you also heard the message, was Victor Antonio. And I'd never seen Victor speak live. Now, Victor's got over 200,000 YouTube followers. He's hosted television shows. He's such a humble guy from humble beginnings. Funny as hell. He was very complimentary and kind towards me. He shared with me that he sees much of him in me. And he goes, a lot of people don't have it. He goes, Prale, you've got it, which was, clearly he was drunk at the time, but I'll take it. But what he did, he broke the 4th wall. So I'm not making this up. And I saw him in rehearsal, and he actually talked, Taro, what do you think? And I'm in the theater. He's up on stage, so he's talking to me through the massive loudspeakers, and it's echoing everywhere. Should I put this microphone stand here or here? I was thinking here. I'm like, no, I'd put it there, which was in the middle of the stage. And he's like, okay. And so he took my advice. Man. Anyway, what he did by breaking the 4th wall was he came on stage, and he talked to the audience, and he said, just so you know, I am going to occasionally go to this microphone because he was mic'd. He had the lapel, so he didn't need a microphone. I'm going to occasionally go to this microphone up here, and I'm going to talk to you. And when I'm there, I'm going to be telling you secretly what I'm actually doing when I'm presenting away from the microphone. So think of it as two characters. He was the main presenter, pacing the stage back and forth, talking to both sides of the room, and then he's like emphatic, and this is what you need to do, and and then he'd walk up to the middle microphone, and his voice would lower, and he'd look at the audience, and he'd get all conspiratorial, and he'd look and he'd say, "Now, what Victor just did was Victor did this, and the reason Victor did this is because he wants you to think that, and he wants you to react this way. Now, when you react that way, Victor's going to do that. You keep an eye on this because he's playing you, okay?" And then boom, he'd go back to doing this thing, and he would do the same thing. So he had this running commentary. It was awesome. I loved it. And the crowd was so on their feet. So those are the two best speakers. I learned a ton from them. Everybody else rocked. I have no disparagement of anybody else, but those are the two that stood out for me personally.
Okay, right. So a little double act of Victor Antonio was your highlight.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to be Victor when I grow up. Victor's only 5 years older than me.
I was going to say, I thought the age was probably quite close there, but
very close.
We'll let that
and
one
I learned
slide.
that Anthony Iannarino is 3 weeks younger than I am. So I have much better hair than Anthony Iannarino. So there you go.
No comment.
Shush.
That's my comment. No comment.
That's your comment right there?
How was your
let me wrap
presentation?
it up. How was my presentation? My presentation was, so I was relieved. The opening keynote was fantastic. And that probably sounds obnoxious. I only say this several days after practice. I'm a very critical individual of my own content, not of others. And secretly, I suffer a little bit from imposter syndrome. But when I finally saw it, which was several days later, I was smiling and I was engaged and I observed myself waiting on edge to see what I was going to say next, even though I already knew what I said. So I was very happy, thank goodness, with my keynote. And then my 90-minute masterclass, that was the first time giving that presentation. It was a lot of content. You and Bergen specifically, as our product marketing experts and rock stars, helped me put together an amazing deck on sales engagement deconstructed. And folks, you should see it. I'll share, if you want to see it, let me know. I'll send it to you a link. We spent 90 minutes going deep on what sales engagement is, how it works, time of day, what day of the week, what channels for every single channel. This is what works. This is what doesn't work. Like for email, I think all of you came up with 5 or 6 different techniques you can use to structure an email. We went in samples. We did the same for email, for SMS. We did the same thing for social. We just went deep, and the audience was into it. And I actually ended up going 15 minutes over my allotted time. So my 90-minute session became 110 minutes, which is crazy, almost 2 hours. And that was by I would have stopped at 90 minutes, but there was nobody after me at that moment in time. It was midday for lunch. And they were like, no, keep going. So I'm grateful. It was the first time giving that presentation, so I didn't know how it was going to go. Again, because I'm not as smart as you are, I thought for sure I would get busted. But as a whole, it went well. We're going to turn it into an ebook. I think it literally is the most in-depth conversation ever held in the history of sales engagement in a public forum. And I say that with all sincerity. And I think it's awesome. So if you want to learn how to improve your cadences, do it. And it was so funny because when I was at the VIP session, there was a VIP masterclass before the live event started just for VIP attendees, which is just a higher price point. Because we were title sponsors, we were automatically VIPs because I'm poor and can't afford it. And you submit issues, and then Victor and Mark Hunter and Anthony Iannarino give you answers, and they organize the debate, and they go back and forth, and they get the audience involved, and it was really good. And one of the fellows had said, "Listen, we just rolled out outreach, and we got a big team, and everybody's doing it, and we're doing the whole thing, and it was quite the process, and we've had zero impact. It's totally done nothing for us." Why? Why is that? We were told it was going to change the world. And Anthony was great. He came over and he said, "Darryl, do you want to tell him why?" And I told him, I said, "Did you do this, 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 this?" And he goes, "Yep." I said, "That's why." So if anybody wants to know what the answer is, it's not an outreach thing. It could be VanillaSoft, it could be SalesLoft, but it's how you approached it. let me know. I'll tell you what you're doing wrong, which is great because what it told me was my topic that, of course, was coming up in a few days after that on Sales Engaged Deconstructed was the perfect topic at the perfect time. And so that explains why it was so well received. So there you go. Ollie, I'm sure Daniel is in the back freaking out as we do this, thinking we're running out of time. So this is, let me wrap up if you're okay. Otherwise, we'll keep on going. Maybe we can do an after dark session. What I want to say is this. If you wanted to hear Ollie's rant, we parked it this week so we can have a conversation about outbound. But he's going to be back next week. His rant is already ready. I've actually heard it. It's going to be great. So the rant is phenomenal. So if nothing else, come back for that. Next, if you only have budget to attend or participate in one show next year, you or your organization, and I say this again with all sincerity, having done all the shows, and especially if you're based in North America because it's just easier and more cost effective, but if international as well, truly, Outbound Conference, that's where I put my money. You're going to get the most value if you're a sales professional. That's just where you get the most money. It is the best, highest caliber, best quality show, greatest content, greatest learnings you're ever going to get. So that's the one. Now they have a live track and they have a virtual track, so you can go either way. Either you can sign up, whatever works for you. But that's my advice to you on this week's edition of The Drive. But in the meantime, if you signed up, if you attended the show, you're actively in one of our cadences as we speak, and you get to experience it firsthand. We're going to give you lots of great content from the show that we've handpicked to share with you. Beyond that, if you want to get entered into it because you want access to that content, just drop Ollie or I a line. We'll make it happen. But Ollie, we're out of time, my friend. You were an awesome host. Have you thought about doing this for a living?
No, I haven't. But you know what? Actually, you said go to Outbound next year. You know what I might do, just in case people weren't already sold? I might, somewhere, slip in a picture of baby Daryl into that deck without him knowing. And he'll be on stage. Click. Oh, my God.
There it appears.
How did that get there?
Who the heck did that? Outbound's taking place September 2022, so you have lots of time to save up. Folks, we are truly out of time. Daniel is literally crying in my ear. He's so upset. And we don't want to upset Daniel. He's already fragile. Have you followed Ollie Whitfield on Twitter? He's phenomenal. He's got fantastic posts. Ignore his posts about football, or what we call over here in North America, soccer. He's jaded and biased and a bit emotional. But all his other stuff, quite funny. Check him out on LinkedIn as well. Check out his podcast, 0 to 5 Million. He and Sean Feiner do it together. Brilliant podcast where they chronicle entrepreneurs and the successes and lessons they've learned along the way as they ramp up their company, as you can guess, from 0 to 5 million. In the meantime, if you want to hear more about the Outbound Show, listen to this week's edition of my podcast, the Inside Sales Show, where we physically go down deep about everything I learned from a content point of view, not from a show point of view, from Jeb, from Anthony, from others, and why it's great and what you should learn from it too. And then finally, send Daniel some love. He would love to hear from you. He's the magic behind this whole production. Ladies and gentlemen, I've had a fantastic time. I'm glad to be back. I missed you. Thank you, Ollie, for your help. Folks, we're out of here. We're done. We'll see you next week right here on The Drive.